Alrighty, good morning, folks. This is Jim Nielsen with On the Bench with Big Jim. And I don't know why, but we were having technical difficulties this morning getting onto Facebook Live. And so I figured we would just do the video and and try to to present this later when Facebook allows me to. Sorry about all that, but you just have to adapt and get on with things. All right, so today's show is basically I wanted to talk about this special dedication this afternoon of the wrestling sculpture. It's already downtown at Sinkiuse Square, and but tonight we're going to have a special ceremony recognizing past coaches and people who helped with getting not only the sculpture done, but also the wrestling room and the tradition that we have here in Moses Lake with the field of wrestling. Alrighty, folks, we're going to be visiting with John Lane, who was the initiator of this wrestling sculpture, and we're going to have him here on the line here in just a second.
Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How
awesome.
What a lovely day out.
It is beautiful, and couldn't have nicer weather. Even though it's cold, yet we have beautiful blue skies. Hey, thanks for being here this morning with me on the bench with Big Jim. And we have a special event this afternoon at Sinkiuse Square down in downtown Moses Lake. It's going to start at 5:30. And we will be having a little dedication ceremony for the wrestling sculpture. And what I wanted to do was talk to you a little bit about how this sculpture came about, but I wanted to give people an idea, basically a little bit of your history, and so if you don't mind reeling back the years, when was it you first started your wrestling career?
Well, gosh, Jim, I hate to talk about myself, but yeah, I started wrestling in junior high school at Chief Moses Middle School, or junior high at that time, and my coach was Mel Olson, so it was
unbelievable.
punching buttons, I lost it.
I don't know what happened, but my daughter's going to edit this, so we'll edit this out. Go ahead and start back that you wrestled at Chief Mo and Mel Olson was your coach.
Sure. Well, Jim, thanks for asking about my history. And I started wrestling at Chief Moses Junior High School, and my coach was Mel Olson. I've often said I was blessed to have Hall of Fame coaches all through my wrestling career, and Mel was certainly a great one to start off with. And wrestled in junior high and lived on a farm about 10 miles north of Moses Lake, and worked in the spring and fall, and didn't have a lot to do with in the winter. I never played football or never played baseball, but wrestling seemed to be my sport. So I started in junior high school and had a little bit of success and just really loved the sport.
And there wasn't a club back in those days, so you just wrestled in season, and then kids moved on to other sports or other activities.
Yeah.
And how long was the junior high season back in those days?
I think back then we were pretty restricted in the number of matches, and I don't remember the exact number, but it wasn't very many. It was probably 10 or 12 matches during the year. We used to have a lot of dual meets back then. Now they seem like all the middle school or junior high school or tournaments, but the middle school, it was always a great rivalry between Chief Moses and Frontier, as well as other junior high schools. So it wasn't very many matches, but just loved it.
Oh, that's terrific. And then you get into high school. Tell us a little bit about your high school experience.
Well, I started out again as a sophomore, and Gary Frey was my coach, and Gary certainly is a legend here, another Hall of Fame coach. And Gary was just an inspiration to me. He just, I guess, he knew how to push the right buttons or say the right things, and certainly inspired me. I really, in retrospect, I think I was a hard worker. I guess I don't appreciate how good I was. I wish I had some old videos to go back and see some of my matches. But started out with Gary Frey, wrestled for him for 2 years. Did almost qualify for state my sophomore year. Had a competition, and as they do even now, you had some wrestle-offs, and there was only one person per weight, of course, going to the state tournament, and there was only one state tournament. But wrestled an upperclassman who actually he failed to make weight. I forget the name now who he was, but I had an opportunity to go and just take the position going to the tournaments, but I didn't think that was right, so I did wrestle him, and he beat me 2 out of 3. Darn it! But anyway, I continued on, and then my junior year I did go to state, and was fortunate enough to win it. That year I went to state with a good buddy of mine, Dennis Burns, who was also state champion, and we have some very, very fond, very special memories, and a very special bond because of what we went through. Then my senior year, I wrestled again. That was the first year for Dick Dean, and Dick and I think we broke each other in. I was a little upset because having lost Gary Frey, who I'd wrestled for a couple of years, and Dick was a new guy on the block and didn't really know him, and we kind of butted heads a little bit. I think we helped each other grow up a lot, and since that time, of course, Dick is one of my very, very special friends. We have a wonderful bond, and just appreciate all he's done for Moses Lake Wrestling. And
you guys are still very close friends. You seem to be together all the time.
Well, we are. We've been through a lot. We often say we're twins. He's a twin. I'm a twin. We're twin brothers with different mothers. So that's not many people can say that. But Dick and I go back a long ways. I have nothing but utmost respect for the things that Dick's done.
Okay, so when you're finishing high school, right there at the end of your senior season, what were your options, and what was your plan as far as going to college and or wanting to continue wrestling? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, being a small town boy, I guess I didn't look very far. Bob Mason, who again, what a legendary coach he is, and a legendary, just a great person. I knew I wanted to go to Big Bend, and I wasn't the best student, quite frankly. Excuse me. I was involved in a number of things, band and student government and whatnot, but I know I wanted to stay pretty local, and my family, quite frankly, didn't have a lot of money, so there weren't quite as many options. So I knew I wanted to go to Big Bend. They had a great program. I wrestled 2 years for Big Bend under Bob Mason, and Bill Russell, who again is another wonderful person that had a great impact on my life. Was able to win state community college tournament twice, and then also wrestled in the national junior college champion, and was a champion there. I always say I won by 7 seconds riding time. It would have been a tie match if I wouldn't have ridden him for the time. I didn't have riding time in high school, but they had it at the college level, and it was quite an experience.
And winning by a riding time point at the national tournament, that's you come right down to it. But hey, you're the champion, and that's all that counts. After Big Bend and your experience there, having coached Bob Mason be your coach,
Yeah,
Where did
yeah.
you?
I was kind of spoiled. Bob had a lot of contacts nationally, and so I actually went down and visited Oklahoma State, and looked at their programs, and then I eventually went to University of Washington. Coach Jim Smith was building a program. He went on to pretty good things there, but I decided to go stay fairly local, and went over there and decided I was a small town boy in the big city, and Seattle wasn't my cup of tea. I wrestled 1 year there and had some success. Wrestled in the Pac-10 or Pac-8 tournament back then, and did okay, but I just didn't meet my goals, and I decided a better choice for me was to move to Ellensburg, and I wrestled 1 year at Central. Wrestled again under a Hall of Fame coach, Eric Beardsley, who really started out in Moses Lake, and so a number of Moses Lake wrestlers, Chris Dexter, Ron Seibel, Lemoyne Merkley were still there with the program, and so it was like coming home again. It was a great place for me to go.
And you just said it. Gary Frey, Dick Dean, Bob Mason, Eric Beardsley, and what a great list of all Hall of Fame coaches that had an influence on you.
Yeah. I've been very blessed that way, and I guess that's really we get back to this sculpture. That's what this is all about. This is about the tradition of Moses Lake and the Columbia Basin, for that matter. You look at the great programs of Warden. I worked down in Warden for a couple of years, and know what a great job Rick Bowers and the coaches down there have done, and Royal City and Othello and Annie Freda and Quincy. And there's been just an amazing group of just great people, great coaches, and just great programs. We can be very proud. And this sculpture was intended to honor that tradition, the parents and the athletes and the coaches that have helped to set this legacy.
Well, let's talk about how did the sculpture come about? What started you thinking that was something that we should do?
Well, a number of years ago, I was on city council with Dick Dean, and there was a sculpture art in the park program, and the idea was to enhance our community by adding art around the community, and I was very, very supportive of that. It was a great program, and kind of the enthusiasm and the money ran out, and so a gentleman by the name of Don Garrett started he worked for the city of Moses Lake, and was really a craftsman in the welding area, and he started building some of these. He built the park down there, the handicap park down at McCosh, and he also built the other athletic sculptures that are downtown. Contacted him and talked to him about there's no wrestler, and that certainly is what Moses Lake is known for, and asked him if he would be willing to help out, and he certainly was. Started working on the project, and I wanted to bring in maybe a little bit different perspective. So I talked to Craig Skeezy, because he and Don got together and kind of fine-tuned what we were going to do. Originally, I was going to have Don build the sculpture, but I thought what a great way to involve some of the local people, and so I took it up to Columbia Basin Technical School, and Chad Utter and Dave Oliver, artists in their own right, if you will, jumped on board and said they would have their students work on the project. So that's how it came about, and now we've worked through the process, and I'm just thrilled to death to have it up and on display in downtown Moses Lake.
That's very, very cool. And there's a lot of people that jumped on board to help with not only the production of it, but also financing it and the materials. Do you have a list you'd like to thank?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like everything. There's just a lot of people that have been involved. I want to thank one of our former wrestler, Heath Martin, who's a very successful businessman down in Oklahoma. He jumped on board and with a major contribution. Mosaic Iron and Metal, Steve Rempel was, just was so helpful in donating a lot of the metal materials. Robert Bailey from RD Powder or Coating helped painting it, and I just loved the color, the maroon and gold. That turned out great. Mike Chase from Business Interiors helped with some of the production of materials. So yeah, there's been a number of people that are involved. It's not just me. There's a lot of people to give credit for, and that's what this celebration today is, to honor those and thank them for their contributions to Moses Lake.
Awesome. Well, again, folks, if you have the opportunity, 5:30 Wednesday afternoon, March 13th. Come down to Sinkiuse Square and join us in the celebration and dedication of the wrestling statue that resides there, right there next to the clock tower. What a perfect spot for it.
Well, Jim, we've ordered wonderful weather for today, so I hope we have a good crowd. Thank the community of Moses Lake for their past support and their future support, certainly, because I think there's some great things ahead for the wrestling community in the Columbia Basin.
Hey, John, I want to thank you so much for coming on and being with us here on the Bench with Big Jim and sharing us a little bit about your story and also the start of the sculpture, and looking forward to seeing you this afternoon down at Sinkiuse Square at this celebration.
Well, I appreciate it, Jim, and wish you all the best on your new venture. This is an exciting new opportunity. You are a futurist. You're looking to the future and going to try to reach out in different ways to celebrate those wonderful things that are going on in our community. So thank you for what you do.
Well, I appreciate that. You're very, very welcome, and thanks for the kind words. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you this afternoon. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Take care, bud. All righty, folks. Up next, we will talk with Chad Utter and Dave Oliver of the Advanced Manufacturing Program at CB Tech, and we'll do that here in a minute. All righty, that was a great little visit we had with John Lane, who he's done so much more. He's a hero in many people's minds here in the city of Moses Lake. But it's great that we had the opportunity to visit with him about the wrestling sculpture, and we certainly make sure you're invited, folks, to be able to come and witness this celebration of this dedication of the wrestling sculpture that's going to sit down at Sinkiuse Square for a long time. Hopefully you can make that. 5:30, Sinkiuse Square, and we're going to be talking with Mr. Chad Utter, who is with the Advanced Manufacturing Program through CB Tech. He and Dale Oliver were the instructors that helped the students put together this wrestling sculpture. Alrighty, how are you doing today?
Good. You hear me?
I certainly can hear you.
Okay.
So, folks, today we have Mr. Chad Utter and Mr. Dale Oliver. You guys are the instructors there at the Advanced Manufacturing Program, right?
Yeah. Dave Oliver.
And excuse Dale Oliver.
Dave.
Dave?
Dave.
I'm sorry.
I might have spelled that wrong when I texted you. Who knows?
Okay. Well, I know, but there's a problem. I know a Dale Oliver.
Okay.
So Dave Oliver. Sorry about that, Dave. Welcome to On the Bench with Big Jim, and you have some students there as well, and we'll get to them in just a second. But what I wanted to ask was, when you were approached by Mr. Lane and the other gentleman, Mr. Garrett, that did the things for the city, the sculptures for the city. What was your first impression, or what was your first thoughts when they approached you with this idea?
Good deal, because it's having something that was potentially going to be downtown. That's a good motivator for students, one, to do well, and the other, they have something in life they can go back to, and something to be proud about. Like I did that weld right there.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was one of the three young men that you have with you right now, but when Mr. Lane presented this to the city on where they were going to place it, one of the young students came up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, I worked on that project." And he was like, "Oh, I wish you would have said something, because we could have brought that person up and brought him up and had him talk to the city council."
Yeah, I mean, the tough part was we had, over the span of that project, a couple of years, we had probably 40 different students work on it at one stage or another, and it might have been a small part. The three kids that I've got with me today, they all had probably bigger roles than some. We've got Enoch with us, and he did a lot of the welding on it. But, last year we had 3 different sessions of kids, so probably close to 60 students that might have had a hand in it, and then this year another 20 or 30. And while none of them had a huge role, they all had a little bit of a role. So I guess the good part of that is hopefully down the road, I'm sure their story will grow. When they have kids and grandkids, they'll go down and say, "Yeah, I built that whole thing by myself." So,
and that'll be fine. That'll be fine if they share it that way. Let's introduce these kids. We have Clark Rookstool and Seth Rosell.
Yep.
And Enoch Figueroa. So,
yep.
Let's ask, since you brought up Enoch first, let me ask Enoch a couple questions.
Okay, here he is.
Hey, how are you, Enoch?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. What grade are you in?
11th.
You're a junior. And how long have you been in the program?
This will be my 3rd year.
3rd year. You started as a freshman. That's terrific. Now, do you know about the tradition and the history of wrestling in Moses Lake?
No, I don't.
You don't. Are you going to be able to come to the celebration or the dedication this afternoon?
I hope to.
Well, we sure hope. Hopefully, you're there. Please come up and introduce yourself to me, because I want to meet you and I want to share with you a little bit about the tradition and what your work, you and your fellow students, what your work really, how significant that is for so many people in our community, and not only in Moses Lake, but in Othello and Ephrata and Royal and Quincy, Warden. Wrestling is a big sport, and it's loved by a lot of people. And the statue, even though it's maroon and gold, there's a meaning for a lot of people here in town of the work that you did. When was there a time during the process where you're like, oh, you know what, we need to change this or make this a little bit better, or did it all come together pretty seamlessly?
No, there was some moments where we needed we need to bend this a little more so it can fit on and so it looks more natural as a human getting flung over. But yeah, I did this with my brother, and so me and my brother pretty much welded one of the dudes together.
Oh, cool.
One of the other dudes, some of the other people welded together, but there were some definite moments, where it happened.
Now, do you have any idea of how long this? I mean, hopefully, we live for a long time. This statue will still be downtown, and it'll still be in that same spot. Has that hit you? Has that come to a realization yet?
Yeah, it has. I drive by to work every day, and I'm like, wow, I can show my grandkids this and my kids when I get older. That's gonna be cool.
That's awesome. So let me talk to Clark Rookstool.
Okay, here you go.
Hey, thanks, Enoch.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Clark. How are you?
Good, how about you?
I'm great. Hey, what grade are you in?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior, and how long have you been in this advanced manufacturing program?
This is my second year.
Second year. Let me ask you this: what was it that made you think, "Hey, I want to get into this"?
Well, I took a few welding classes at the highest school and wanted to kind of advance my knowledge, and I've heard this was a good program.
Uh-huh. Now, when you come out of this, because you're going to be finishing here pretty soon, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel yet?
Yeah.
You do? That's good. What do you want to do?
I'm not too sure yet.
Now, are you going to need more advanced training to be able to go out and weld for someone?
Well, I could get certified here and start welding right away.
Through the program at the high school?
At CB Tech.
Oh, right. Well, at CB Tech, that's what I meant. While you're still in high school.
Yeah.
Doesn't Big Bend have a pretty good welding program, from what I understand?
As far as I know.
And my question is, you know how to weld already, but would having advanced training at Big Bend give you a better option to get a better job?
Yes.
Well, good. Well, but and this is something that I grew up on a farm, and I learned how to weld when I was a kid from my dad, a stick weld. I don't know how to MIG weld, but I was a stick welder, and I've been able to stick weld, even now. But I really was never ever trained. So the welding you guys did on this sculpture was crazy good. How much can you kind of give us an idea how much time you spent on the sculpture yourself?
Myself, probably about 6 to 7 hours.
Okay. And do you have an understanding, or do you know about the history of Moses Lake Wrestling?
I know it's a big part in our community.
Yeah, well, that's good because it is. We've won the state championship several times, and are you going to be able to come to the dedication this afternoon?
I am not too sure yet.
Okay. Well, we certainly hope you can make it, and if you do come, please come up and introduce yourself to me. I'd like to get to know the kids that actually worked on this sculpture. Thank you very much, Clark. Can I talk to Seth?
Yep, here you go.
Thanks, bud.
Hello.
Hi, Seth. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm great. How do you pronounce your last name?
Rossell.
Rossell. Okay. And what grade are you in?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior as well. How long have you been in the program?
It's my first year.
First year. And so, how much have you been able to work on this sculpture?
From when I got when I started the program, we started learning how to do stuff, and then from after on when we got done learning the different types of welds, we just got started right away. And
that's when you guys were working on this particular sculpture?
At the time, yeah.
Oh, cool. What got you in the program? We have 3 different students here, and they all have different histories. Yours came along later. What were you? What inspired you to come on late in your school? Because you're about done too. You're a senior. Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you getting excited about graduating?
Oh yeah.
Did you have friends in the program, or did you?
Yeah, I had friends in the program, and my family, or my grandpa and my uncle, they used to weld, or my uncle still does weld and stuff.
And so that you just had an interest in it.
Yeah.
And that's terrific. What do you have an idea what you want to do career-wise? Are you going to go into college?
I'm probably going to go to college, but after that, I don't know exactly
you haven't
what I'm
decided
going to do yet.
No, that's good. I'll tell you what. Growing up, I grew up, like I said earlier to Clark, I grew up on a farm, and I learned to weld there, and never figured I would go into being a welder as far as a profession, because all I wanted to do was play football. But having the knowledge of being able to weld, it's a cool thing because I like to mess around with that kind of stuff. I'm into blacksmithing and woodworking and those kind of things, and welding is very, very handy skill to have. But what do you have? What's your understanding of the tradition or the legend or the legacy of wrestling here in the community, and what this statue is going to mean to a lot of people?
I know that wrestling is really big in the community and in like the Columbia Basin. That's like all I really know. I just know that it's like really big in our community, and that all of the people, from what I heard right now, all of the people enjoy what it looks like, how it is right now.
And you're correct. I was there when they actually put it in place, and it's hard to explain what wrestling has done for me, and to have this recognized as a community sport, because all of the other you've seen the other sculptures, and this is a question for all of you young men. You've seen the other sculptures downtown, right? The other sports that are around the downtown area, and your statue, and I give you possession of it because you helped build it. But your statue is a part of that program, the arts and that Mr. Lane talked about, the Art in a Park program, where different art sculptures were made of different sports. And this one really has a lot of meaning to a lot of people in the wrestling community, and it's big here in Moses Lake. And from the bottom of my heart, and I think I can speak for a lot of people, we really, really appreciate the effort and the time that you guys put in to making this a special thing that will last for a long, long time. And I want to thank you all, and thank you all for being on the bench with Big Jim. And it's kind of crazy today because of some technical difficulties we had earlier, but I want you all to know that I really appreciate the time and effort you guys have done on the program. I have a question for Chad. Chad and Dave, watching this sculpture being built, what has been your impression of how it's all come together?
Okay. Well, I guess first off, I'll talk and then Dave can. When you look at those things downtown and you say, that should be fairly easy. But then when you start to put the thing together and you're working with half-inch steel and pieces are heavy, and we wanted to make sure it looked as lifelike as we possibly could out of steel.
Yeah.
And so there were some changes that we had to make just to, different angles and different bends to make it a little bit more realistic than what maybe the drawings showed. And so that problem solving for the kids, it gets frustrating sometimes because, it's like, well, this shouldn't be that hard, and it shouldn't be, but if you want to make it look right, then you got to do those extra things to make it look special.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is, the students learned a lot about quality of workmanship too. I mean, a lot of the welds that are on there, the first try wasn't good enough, and for most people they'd have been fine. But we wanted to make sure that it was something that when they do go down there in 10 years and look at it, say, okay, now I see why I took that weld out and had to redo it. So there was a lot of air arcing and learning other skills or practicing other skills that they had to do just to get to that point. We could have got it done a lot faster if we hadn't made sure it was done perfect.
And I think the wait for all of it it was fine because we wanted it to be just right, and I think you guys did a terrific job. I appreciate the fact that you guys took that extra time to make those special bends so it would be a little more lifelike, and that's a very, very cool thing. So, what have you and Dave been able to go and see it in the square to kind of appreciate the workmanship and how it fits downtown?
Yeah, I've been down there, and it looks so much smaller than here in the shop. That's one thing I really noticed. But it's we're glad that that'll be part of the community, because wrestling has been so big for so long, and then to have a piece that students made to be in downtown Moses Lake, that's an awesome thing. And that, I hope that we make more things for downtown. I think that would be, it goes a long way to be able to build in self-esteem, to being part of the history of this town.
And, well, it really does. And will both of you be able to be at the ceremony today?
Yep, I'll be there.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you, Dave. I know Chad. I've known Chad for quite some time now, and I really appreciate the hard work that you guys put into this. And it's going to be something that my grandkids will see, and I hope my boys that wrestled at the high school. My daughter was actually the stat girl for a long time. They're going to be able to appreciate this as well, because it does mean a lot to them as well, to being a part of the wrestling family that we have. Guys, thank you so much for being on the bench with Big Jim, and I appreciate your time. I know you guys are in the middle of class, and I want to thank you for your time, and also again for the tremendous effort you guys have put into the wrestling sculpture that we're going to dedicate this afternoon.
Okay, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye-bye. All right, folks, that's amazing day that we've had so far, and I want to thank everybody that's been with me today, Mr. John Lane, and then Chad Utter and Dave Oliver, as well as the students. Thank them again for being here with us. I don't know what went on with Facebook today, but it wouldn't let me start a live video, and so we recorded this. I hope I can enter it into Facebook and get it out there to everybody. Appreciate you all, and we'll try and do another episode of On the Bench with Big Jim on Friday. So take care, everybody, and we will see you. We'll see you this afternoon down at Sinkiuse Square here in Moses Lake, 5:30. And take care, everybody. We'll see you.